Hello, I'm Sandra, a 33-year-old woman eager to share a story from my recent past that had a significant impact on my life, especially during a challenging time with my husband and his family. This event unfolded a few months ago, and while things have settled down now, I'm still navigating the emotional aftermath. I believe that discussing this experience could be therapeutic for me. Let's travel back 5 years to a pivotal moment in my life, deciding to marry my boyfriend Jeffrey. We first connected through mutual friends and enjoyed 5 wonderful years together before tying the knot. Jeffrey was a joyful, caring, and affectionate partner. Hailing from a well-to-do family and holding a stable, well-paying job, he often expressed his love through gifts, which was his way of showing affection. We both had a passion for travel, which only strengthened our connection. As our relationship progressed, my friends noticed how happy I was and often complimented Jeffrey for his generosity. Sometimes his lavish gifts made me uncomfortable, like when he surprised me with a new laptop for my college graduation. I felt a bit overwhelmed by the disparity in our financial contributions. I used to remind him, "Jeffrey, I'm just a college student. I can't keep up with your spending. Let's try to manage other expenses together." But Jeffrey would simply smile and insist on taking care of it, saying that it was common among his friends to treat their partners. Eventually, I grew accustomed to our financial dynamics, although I continued to contribute whenever possible. After securing a well-paying job, I began sharing expenses more equitably with Jeffrey. We even started discussing the future, including moving in together. Jeffrey was supportive and suggested, "Why don't you move in with me? I inherited my grandfather's house, so there's no worry about rent." This journey through my relationship and the subsequent interactions with Jeffrey's family during tough times have been both enriching and challenging, teaching me a lot about love, resilience, and personal growth. Even though I had reservations about splitting our living costs, Jeffrey reassured me, and we decided to live together. We agreed to share financial responsibilities fairly, taking into account our different incomes. Everything was progressing smoothly until the day I met Jeffrey's family. Jeffrey's parents and sister live quite far away, and with Jeffrey tied up with work, I had to host them by myself. He had warned me beforehand that his family could be judgmental but didn't elaborate, advising me simply to ignore any hurtful remarks. I resolved to stay positive, but my optimism quickly waned upon their arrival. Instead of greeting me warmly, Jeffrey's parents and sister displayed noticeable annoyance, setting a tense tone for our interactions. During one particularly uncomfortable conversation, Jeffrey's mother, Emma, looked at me disapprovingly and said, "So you're the woman Jeffrey has been seeing." She then sharply asked, "Do you even pay rent here?" I calmly explained, "No, Emma, I don't pay rent because Jeffrey said the house is already paid for, but we split all other bills evenly." I hoped this clarification would smooth things over, but Emma was dismissive. "Just because the house is paid for doesn't mean you can mooch off him. This is his house, not yours. Remember that," she retorted. The atmosphere grew even more strained with Jeffrey's sister, Alice, who seemed more interested in giving cold glares than engaging in conversation. When I inquired about her life, she briefly mentioned being married to a wealthy billionaire and brushed off further dialogue. Throughout their visit, Jeffrey did little to support me and appeared to align with his family's critical stance. Both Eric and Emma continued to criticize me, particularly disapproving of my spending on makeup and skincare, which they deemed excessive given what they perceived as my insufficient financial contribution. Jeffrey's unhelpful comments, like referring to me as a struggling student, only exacerbated the tension. The visit proved challenging as I faced a barrage of judgments and dismissals from Jeffrey's family, which left me questioning the strength of my relationship with Jeffrey, given his lack of support in the face of his family's harsh assessments. When Jeffrey and I first met, he would often pay for more extravagant items, implying that I relied heavily on him due to my job not covering what he termed my taste for luxury. This wasn't entirely accurate, and I was taken aback by his comment. I had to remind him that our financial setup had evolved significantly since those early days. Now, we were splitting our bills equally. I explained that I had always lived modestly, both before and during our relationship. Any luxury items I owned were gifts from Jeffrey, which I frequently suggested he refrain from buying because they felt too lavish for my taste. Jeffrey justified his spending by saying that his social status necessitated giving fancy gifts, which made me realize that his generosity was sometimes more about maintaining a certain image among his friends rather than genuine care. This realization became clearer after a troubling visit from his family, where their judgmental attitude towards me left a sour taste. When I brought up how hurt I was by their treatment and his lack of support, Jeffrey's response was dismissive. "Don't take it to heart, Sandra. They meant well. You're overreacting," he said, brushing off my concerns. Despite these doubts, when Jeffrey proposed 6 months later, I accepted. Happiness overcame me, and we began planning our engagement party. By this time, I was running a small side business, which was more of a fulfilling hobby than a major income source. Jeffrey knew about it, but rarely inquired further. As we organized our engagement party, I decided it was a special occasion to indulge a bit. Jeffrey supported this decision, and we shared the expenses for the event. This phase of our relationship, marked by shared financial responsibilities and personal growth, was significant. It highlighted both the challenges and the milestones we faced together, reflecting a deeper understanding and evolving dynamics in our partnership. During our engagement party, I generously covered the plane tickets for my extended family to ensure everyone could attend. However, the event quickly became overshadowed by criticism. Emma, Jeffrey's mother, accused me of being financially reckless. "You shouldn't have spent so much on this party, Sandra," she scolded, suggesting that my actions were draining Jeffrey's finances and that we might end up having a modest backyard wedding. "I thought you were financially irresponsible, but this is worse than I imagined," she added. I defended myself firmly, explaining that the party, while lavish, was a mutual decision. I had paid my share of the expenses, and it was Jeffrey who had insisted on including everyone, showing no concern about the costs. However, Emma continued to suggest I was manipulating Jeffrey into excessive spending, and Alice joined in, implying I should have been more considerate. Frustrated and seeking solace, I excused myself to the lawn. There, I overheard Alice and her husband Peter mocking me, which only added to the feeling that my engagement party was unraveling. It seemed Jeffrey was oblivious to his family's harsh judgments, most of whom believed I was jobless and too dependent on him. Seeing my distress, my mother approached me, gently suggesting that I reconsider the engagement in light of Jeffrey's family's ongoing derogatory remarks. After the party, I confronted Jeffrey about his family's behavior. He brushed off their comments as mere jokes and reassured me of his love, stating that financial matters were not a concern for him. Despite this, the stress continued to mount. I expressed a desire to contribute more financially, including towards rent, but Jeffrey dismissed the idea. As we planned our wedding, the stress didn't lessen. Jeffrey's parents persisted in their critiques, accusing me of financially crippling their son. Their constant scrutiny made the engagement period exceedingly challenging. I clarified that everyone, including my mom, was contributing to the wedding expenses, hoping to dispel any misconceptions about my financial contribution and intent. However, despite my efforts to maintain peace and fairness in our financial dealings, Emma still accused me of taking advantage of Jeffrey, labeling me a gold digger. In an attempt to clear the air, I reassured Jeffrey's father, Eric, emphasizing, "Eric, I'm not looking for any financial help. We can finance the wedding on our own." Yet, no matter how much I explained, Alice remained critical, particularly about the cost of my dress and makeup on our wedding day, expenses my mother had kindly covered. The wedding ceremony itself unfolded beautifully, but the reception was marred by continued criticism from Emma and Eric. They openly scrutinized my spending habits, accusing me of financially exploiting Jeffrey. Despite their harsh words, I chose to remain silent, not wishing to spoil our special day with conflict. A few months after our wedding, Jeffrey received a significant promotion at work, and he was eager to celebrate this achievement with a grand family dinner. Excited for him, I decided to personally cover all the expenses for the celebration. "Jeffrey, I want this dinner to be extraordinary. I'm so proud of you and want to celebrate your success," I told him enthusiastically. Jeffrey appreciated my gesture, and I was pleased to share that my business was doing well, bolstered by a stable income from my job and a recently accessed trust fund from my paternal grandfather. I planned the event with meticulous attention to detail, aiming for perfection. However, when his family arrived, their reaction was less than enthusiastic. Despite positive feedback from other guests, they seemed to disapprove of the celebration's opulence. During the speeches, Emma stood up and, her voice echoing throughout the room, began to criticize openly. "I want to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my son. He's hardworking and generous, and he truly deserves this promotion. Unfortunately, he made a poor choice in his partner," she announced, casting a shadow over the otherwise joyful event. This blatant display of disapproval made it clear that despite my efforts and contributions, winning over Jeffrey's family would be a formidable challenge. It was disheartening to hear Emma publicly lament that her son ended up with someone who, in her view, acted like a gold digger. "I wish he had seen her true nature earlier," she voiced with evident regret. "Then he wouldn't have to work so hard to support her expensive lifestyle." Her words painted a picture of me as extravagant, from our engagement party to the dinner that night, suggesting I had nearly drained Jeffrey's accounts. Feeling deeply hurt, yet striving to maintain my composure, I listened as Emma expressed relief over the prenuptial agreement we had signed. "Thank goodness we had Sandra sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. At least some of his assets are protected," she said, almost relieved, adding that it was fortunate Jeffrey married someone who could at least look like a trophy wife. Jeffrey's agreement with his mother's harsh words was a blow. "I can't even afford to spend money on myself anymore. There's nothing left," he complained, calling our marriage a mistake and unfavorably comparing me to others. Shocked and frustrated by the unfounded accusations, I finally spoke up. "Do you think I'm a gold digger?" Jeffrey's response was sharp and dismissive. "Your lifestyle is quite damaging to my bank account," he claimed. Determined to clarify the misconceptions, I addressed everyone present. "Since you all think I'm a gold digger, let me show you my bank balance." Revealing my financial independence, the room fell silent, shocked by the truth. Emma instantly accused, "Did you steal my son's money?" And Jeffrey, suspicious, added, "She must have taken it from you." Frustrated yet calm, I replied, "I don't need to steal money from your son. This is all from my efforts. I recently accessed a trust fund from my grandfather. I planned to use it to buy a bigger house for us, but now that seems unlikely." Despite the tension and the revelations, Jeffrey suggested we could still go ahead with the purchase of the house. "It'll be a wonderful gift," he said, attempting to salvage the situation and perhaps find a way forward. But I was resolute. This was the end of the line. "This is not happening. Your family has insulted me for too long, and you've never stood up for me. Instead, you've allowed them to spread lies about me," I asserted firmly. Jeffrey attempted to minimize the gravity of the situation, accusing me of overreacting. However, I stood my ground. "No, I am not overreacting. Everyone here knows what your family has been calling me. They were here, watching as you allowed them to insult me during our engagement party." Reaching my breaking point, I could no longer tolerate the disrespect. "I want a divorce," I declared sternly. Jeffrey tried to plead with me, seeking reconciliation, but my mother intervened decisively. "You never defended my daughter. It's time she ends this toxic relationship," she declared. With my mother's firm support, we left the party, leaving behind a crowd of shocked guests. My resolve to leave Jeffrey and move on was unshakable. After the confrontation, I went home, gathered my belongings, and sought refuge at my mother's house for solace. The next day, I contacted my cousin, a lawyer, to initiate the divorce process. With the prenuptial agreement in place, the proceedings were straightforward, and I didn't have to worry about sharing my assets with Jeffrey. The situation escalated when Jeffrey and his family showed up at my mother's house demanding a conversation. My mother stood firm, telling them to leave. Despite this, Jeffrey continued to try to reach out to me, his messages oscillating between apologies and threats. I saved all his messages and prepared to file a restraining order if necessary. My mother's unwavering support fortified my resolve. Jeffrey even attempted to confront me at work, further proving his inability to respect my decision. Throughout these challenges, my mother's steadfast presence was a crucial pillar of strength, helping me navigate through the stormy end of a chapter in my life. After Jeffrey attempted to confront me at work, security promptly escorted him out. This incident, along with the growth of my own business, led me to a significant decision. I no longer needed my job. With a clear mind and a firm resolve to move forward, I resigned that very day, eager to embrace the new opportunities that my business presented. 2 weeks after my resignation, I served Jeffrey with divorce papers directly at his workplace. When he visited my old office in an attempt to connect with me, he was surprised to learn of my departure. My former colleagues mentioned that he continued to send flowers and gifts to my mother's house, all of which we returned. His persistent actions bordered on harassment, prompting me to consider a major change. With my mother's encouragement, I decided to relocate. We found a new house in a neighboring state, a true sanctuary far from my past troubles. The divorce proceedings were smooth, largely due to the prenuptial agreement. During the 6 months of our separation, I dedicated myself to healing and preparing for a fresh start. I settled into my new home and even changed my phone number to cut off any remaining ties with Jeffrey. Rumors circulated that Jeffrey's life began to unravel. He blamed his parents for the breakup and faced setbacks at work. His colleagues distanced themselves, and his superiors were displeased with the negative publicity. Meanwhile, his parents attempted to spread rumors of infidelity, but these never gained traction. In contrast, my life started to flourish. I focused intently on my business and relished my newfound independence. I even began dating again, approaching relationships with caution but remaining hopeful about finding someone who truly appreciated and valued me. Despite the pain Jeffrey and his family caused, overcoming these challenges strengthened me profoundly. Looking forward to a brighter future, I felt confident in my resilience and had a clearer understanding of what I sought in relationships and life. This new chapter was not just about recovery, but about thriving and moving confidently toward a future filled with promise and possibility.